The reopening of the attachment wound. Okay, this is such a significant topic, and I'm really excited to talk a bit about it today. And so we've talked a lot in the first couple of videos about CPTSD, right? How does this form? And what we most commonly see is that there has to be a significant rupture in that relationship with one of our or both of our primary attachment figures. So for most of us, this is going to be with our moms or our dads. Okay, so we have this rupture. That's how CPTSD forms. Fast forward, we're an adult and we're in a relationship, and the relationship feels really important to us. Okay, so what I commonly see, most common relationships where these attachment wounds reopen are with our partners, our spouses, a relationship in which we're being sexually intimate with somebody, a friendship, the relationship with our boss, with a colleague. These are the relationships where we see these attachment wounds reopening. Okay, and so this relationship feels really important to us, and maybe we don't understand fully why the relationship feels important to us. Obviously, if it's our life partner, that makes sense, right? But maybe with like our boss, for example, yeah, it's our boss, but it just feels a bit charged, and so we're not quite clear on that. But what's important to note in these relationships where these wounds reopen is that there is an unconscious or a subconscious kind of situation happening where the person that we're in a relationship with actually really mirrors a lot of the behavior from that primary attachment figure that could not be that consistent, nurturing, loving parent, right? So they actually remind us, they feel familiar to us because they actually kind of remind us of our attachment figure that couldn't provide the love and the nurturing we needed, but we don't realize it, okay? So we are not conscious to this when this is happening. That's very important to note here. So we are in this important relationship. It feels charged. It just feels intense. Okay, there's like an intensity to it. Then all of a sudden the relationship goes south. So, somebody, they lied to us. They cheated on us. We told them sensitive information and they shared this with other people. Maybe they all of a sudden ghost us, or they start giving us the silent treatment. So the relationship goes south, okay? And we have an incredibly intense reaction. So yes, this is unfair, unkind, really painful what this person did to us. And it's human to have a reaction, but this is like a very intense reaction, okay? And so what I commonly see in terms of reactions are just really intense, a really intense, deep sadness, depression, long bouts of sobbing, intense rage and anger. And it's important to note that for most of these folks that are coming in with this attachment wound reopening, these are people who for years have really not felt a ton of emotions. They've been pretty emotionally and physically shut down. So all of a sudden they're feeling stuff again, and it's intense and it's overwhelming, and it can feel really, really scary for folks. I often see folks coming in who, they've never dealt with suicidal ideation before, and all of a sudden they're feeling like it's better for them to not be here. And so there's a suicidal part that kicks in when things just feel so intense and they can't make sense of it. And so we see very intense reactions when this attachment wound reopens, okay? And here's the thing, folks, is that some people stay in this dynamic with folks and with friendships for years. Like the wound keeps reopening, okay? And what's important to know here is the reason why we're having such a strong reaction is because basically we have kind of returned to this very deeply wounded a child part of us, right? So the child is basically perceiving rejection or abandonment by the parent. Okay, so this is all a very subconscious, unconscious process. Very important to note that. I'm going to talk about two different groups. So I'm going to talk about the group of folks who have this wound reopen and they're already engaged in therapy and they already know about their relational trauma. And then I'm going to talk about folks who are unaware of their relational trauma and who are not healing yet. So let's say you're in therapy, you're in the healing process, and you have one of these attachment wounds reopen, and you bring this into therapy. What I hear a lot of times is, I can't believe I let this happen. I'm reverting, I'm backsliding. This isn't working for me. I'm beyond repair. How could I have let this happen? How did I not see this? And so there's a lot of shame and a lot of embarrassment around this. It's the therapist's job here to step in and say, whoa. This is not something that you could have seen. This person did not present initially like your attachment figure. And that's the truth for most of these, is that people present incredibly well and then something switches, right? And so you couldn't have seen it, okay? And this does not mean that you are backsliding. This is an incredibly important opportunity for us to do the next layer of healing work, which is going to be so powerful and is going to launch you into this next phase of healing, okay? Without this happening, we maybe couldn't have gone as far as what we can now because this is happening. And I also really honor the pain that they're feeling. They're in so much pain. It's completely understandable. Now that we know what's happening and that this is an attachment wound reopening, it makes so much sense why the reaction is so strong. And so we really want to normalize that and do work with this, right? Like, great opportunity to do pain, like where the pain, the emotional pain in your physical body, a great opportunity to do some additional parts work, to do EMDR on these attachment ruptures. This is such a beautiful opportunity to get in there and clean something out and do some reparenting. This can really result in so much additional healing. It's beautiful. For the folks who have not done a degree of healing and they're unaware of their relational trauma, this can throw people way off. Again, these are folks who are really, for the most part, very kind of shut down emotionally and physically. And for the first time in a long time, or maybe even their lives, they're having this intensely strong reaction to this relationship. And they are so confused as to why. And it can feel so incredibly overwhelming. We can want to curl up in a ball for weeks on end. And so this is what lands a lot of people in therapy, okay? And in that way, it is such a beautiful thing, because yes, this is incredibly painful. And yes, it feels like this is never going to end, right? But now you know this about yourself. Now you know that there is another way to live. Yes, you're in so much emotional pain, but you don't need to live the rest of your life this way. Life can be so much more enjoyable. It doesn't need to feel like such a heavy weight. You don't have to continue to be in relationships after relationship like this. There is a different way. You can live more authentically. And this is what gets a lot of folks into therapy, to understand these things. And in that way, it is such an opportunity, and it is such a beautiful path to healing for many folks. This is probably the most common reason why I see people coming into therapy and first understanding that they have relational trauma. It is one of my favorite topics, as you can tell. I have a degree of passion for this one. And I just really love seeing people finally put pieces together as to, oh my gosh, this is why this felt so incredibly hard. It's almost, it's releasing something. It's releasing something that many of us have been carrying for so incredibly long in so many of our relationships. And so there's a piece that comes from recognizing this. I hope you found this